Afternoon guys, so today we're going to go through a trade I took on the 22nd. This one was just more of like a playbook trade kind of thing for me, of one that I see a lot in S&P when it's at its highs. Obviously it's not now. And just, some of these trades that you can keep some stats on, and then you know your reward, you know what your outcome should be. And maybe you can size up in these more when you've got a bit more conviction on them. So we're going to go through the structure, some of the order flow. It's quite long, but we'll skip through some bits, and just some of the key takeaways, because I didn't really manage it as I should. So the first one, this is the day. So we've obviously had these highs up here, and this is all-time highs now on the cash. These highs, we punctured through and closed at the low. But then this morning we had a bit of news, and we were going to basically open right near the all-time high in here. And for me, as long as we're staying above here, and when you close here, there's a chance for this like quick open test and then push out, as long as you get the three indexes, the Nasdaq, the Dow for me, and S&P moving together, and play for that, drive back up, push into new all-time highs. So this is kind of the structure. You can see this wasn't a great close, but due to like the morning session and where we were opening, you take the trade for what it is, and for me this was still on. This profile split as well, because later on that day we did come back off, but you can see in the first hour and a half we did have that move up and that push higher that I like to see. So this is it on an hourly, so you can see we've tested this level now quite a few times up here now, and then we had this push up, a test in the morning. You can see in the morning how we'd had a bit of news. I think it was the Fed Chair Powell was re-elected. So we'd already had kind of a move up just before the open as it was announced, and pushing now at the all-time highs. This as well is the actual out of hours high. It's 23.50. So that's just a level, once you're in from the cash, playing for the cash all-time high, your first level to watch is this 23.50. That was an overnight high. And you can see as we've come off, but we're making like slightly higher lows, and we're pushing for these highs now. And when the market's in this state, I find sometimes you're better to wait for these kind of setups, and they're your easier ticks to get. So then if we're going to like a 5 minute, so this is obviously, again, this is the previous all-time high. And you can see as we're coming into the open, we're opening here, we had this little move up on the Powell thing, and basically you're looking for a play of cash open, a little test, and a drive up to take this overnight all-time high, and then just a bit of a push higher, and then it's up to your management strategy of how you're going to try and trail this and take as much as you can out of the trade. So this is it on the cash. Now this is for me is where I'll be mainly looking. This is it on a 5 minute first. So you can see how we had that high again. That was your cash high, and now we gapped up and we're opening just at the top of that range, right near the all-time high. So for me, this is where now, once we get into the cash session, I'm now just looking at this. There's a lot more volume done, and it gives me them key areas to watch. The only thing I did obviously still have on was that 23 area that's about here. That was the Globex all-time high. And what you're really looking for is this straight out of the open, a little like test or a little bit of volume, a push out of the volume, and then just to hold above. You've got the open, you've got this level down here. As long as you're holding above, you're playing for that move back up. As well, obviously, you've got the big volume on the open, so you can kind of use the first bit of the open as a reference for this trade, and then you're trying to sit in it. You also see straight on the open the delta increases, showing that people are coming in and buying this market. Is, if you were short, you don't really know why you would be here, but if you were short, you wouldn't really want to see it breaking the all-time highs, because a lot of the time it will do this like push and a squeeze higher, and it's really hard to, even though it did come off to short into this, because you don't know where it's going to stop, and then it's very hard to like get a good risk reward on a trade. So this is it now on the 1 minute. So 15 second chart, 15 seconds where I execute on these. So you can see we get the good volume on the open, and we're closing here. And we basically, it's hard to see on there, but we basically open a little test and then straight up into that other cash all-time high. And then for me, it's like, right, okay, we've got the open just here. As long as we're holding that, the low of the day really, you can play for the move higher. So what I'm looking for is to get in then on the push back through the open, maybe at the high of the day as it breaks, and then to sit in this trade and take as much as you can. And this is kind of where I messed up a little bit, because I got myself in, and for this one, for some reason, it took a long time. We had a little push up, we failed, we came all the way back down base and just held a little low volume node and above the open, pushed up higher, and then we had this big bit of chop. And for me, this was not ideal. You wanted to see it, at least push higher, hold a bit of low volume. And even though if you watch the profile at the time, it's, you're making good volume like this, and it's tapered down, you don't really want to see it kind of coming out this bulge here. And it did at one point. And for me, I held it. I was like, well, I know the risk reward on these trades. I know the value I should be getting. So I'm going to sit in this and hold it. I've put my stop to a scratch because I don't want to see it back then below this. But I should be holding it. And I held it through all of this. I held it through this pullback down here. We got one tick away from the Globex all-time high and came off again. And eventually, for some reason, I got out in here. I thought, it's not going, just bank the ticks. And the second I got out, it pretty much turned and did the move. So regarding my exit, there was no reason. You've done the hard work already, so you should be happy to sit in it. But what I thought was interesting is, if you did sit in it, where could you run it to? If you had two on, maybe you get something out as we go through here and you try and run one. Even if you got one on, what is the best exit strategy? And for me, there's two ways. This dark line just shows when I can start using this EMA, so it's adapted to them, and so with the other EMA as well. So that really you could sit there and go, well, that's my new stop below that. As we've come down, that's my new stop. As we've come off here, that's my new stop. As we've made a new high come off, that's my new stop. That's my new stop. And then you'd be out probably, that would probably be your last stop, and you'd take a lot more from the trade. The other way I was looking at it is, you could use these moving averages. Maybe, obviously at first you got VWAP, but as we're pushing higher quicker, you're letting a lot come back. So maybe you could say that this small one's probably not the best to use on a 15, but this larger one, it's a 50p I think, is you could sit there and go, right, I'm going to sit in one of these until it breaks. Then you'd be out up here. That was near the high of the day, and try and just hold it for some momentum. But I thought it was interesting of how you could manage this differently, because obviously that's not too different, but you need to have a rule and stick to it. So over time, at least the value is correct. If you're doing what I did and you're getting out in here for no reason, other than you've seen it fail a tick from the all-time high, and you've sat through this chop. If you're in down here basically on the blue line, you've sat through this pullback, you've sat through that pullback and hold a VWAP, then there's no reason not to get out just because of the first test. So that was one for me to look at in the future. It was really frustrating, but it happens. But just how you can learn from it again. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at some of the order flow that comes with it on these, because it's quite, I think the more you watch them, the more distinctive it can get. So I put it on 2 times the speed because it is quite a long video. It took a lot longer than I expected. And we're obviously watching this ladder here, the S&P. And just one way I look at these is, we're sitting now near the highs, obviously. You'll see as we get close to the start, I'll always, restart the profile, try and get a little look. And there you are, straight away, you get this little push down, test into the 12s, your open's 1250, and you're up. And now I'm looking at this 1450. That's the area for me to try and get long. You can see so far you've got both equities holding up. None of them have done the NASDAQ Dow, and one's gone offered, one's gone bid. Again, we come down, we test the 1250. So you get long into the high. And straight away you get a little pause and a push as they both go. You've seen NASDAQ's near the high, Dow's moving up, you get a little push up. So really that stop probably should just be a few ticks below. We've already tested it once, your low of the day's only here, there, right, it's moved. And now you go straight into the high and you're pushing up. So this is what you want to see really, is you've got the NASDAQ keep pushing higher now. And as long as the Dow's going up as well, you've got all the equities working in tandem. We've come straight in and we've left some kind of, it looks at first like some low volume, but it's so early on, it's quite hard to rely on sometimes. But what you do want to see is, volume keep building higher and not coming and breaking down below the open and below the low of the day. So we'll leave this to play a bit at the start because it does come back and then it does its push, and then that's when we get stuck in the chop for a bit. Then again, I'm just pulling up the time and sales just because sometimes I like to use it as a reference just for larger orders. You see, that's where we come all the way back and we hold this kind of 25 again. So really for me now, it's like if we go from around here, push up and take the highs, that's where you don't want to see. You've come back into this, we built some volume, someone's sitting there and reloading around here. Come down again and straight back out. I don't know why I do this hovering thing because realistically your stop's there, but I don't know. So as you see, as we push back up now again, you've got NASDAQ still sitting near its highs and now Dow's coming again. So now we're pushing the highs. You've seen that first retest back down. That's where you're at. You've made a new high, your stop's at a scratch. What you see is as we go up, now you can see Dow's near its high of the day as well. NASDAQ's still sitting up there. And this is where we start to sit here, even though Dow's pushing higher. We're going to start to sit around this area now and start building some value. You can see that's the Globex high that I've marked up. That's your first area to get above. But we can start to struggle, even though we've got Dow now near its highs. You can see, you can't see the higher NQ, that's come off a bit now. And you're starting to get this divergence. And this is where I find sometimes you can get get stuck in the middle. It needs to wait for a clear direction on all the equities. But really for me, again, you're still not wrong now. You've had your stop at the low of the day. It's come down, it's retested basically your average price where you're in. That's where you're wrong. We've pushed new highs. So you're wrong here and there's not much else to do really. You're sitting here, you know you're playing for a break of Globex high at least, and then you're going to try and run it. And this is where now you have to sit in it for a bit. And it does take a while. So I'm going to skip a little bit of this because it will sit here chopping for a while. If we watch from here now, you can start to see it's building more and more value up here that you want to see. And where it looked like a bit of volume is done, it's starting to look smaller and smaller as more volume's done on the day. And this is all you really want to see. As long as you've got the volume building up here, and you've got your all-time high there, that's all you want to see to stay in this trade, really. You don't really want to see it breaking here, but it does, and it comes quite far back down. You see, as Dow gets hammered down a bit, and as that's still sitting near the high, this does come back and it breaks the volume, and it does put you under pressure. But for me, if you've been objective, you're not wrong until down here. You know, it would basically be a high low. You've seen what you want to see on the open, and you've done the hard work of getting in, so you should just be happy now to sit in this, you know, let the market work for you. And I do, and I hold this whole pullback down into here, still knowing where my targets are, and where I want to see it break. So we see we come back into this volume bulge again. It's always worth, sometimes if you're playing these, to have the NASDAQ and Dow ladders up, so it can just give you that reference of when they're all pushing together. And you see, as we come up to the highs, I think it might be this time, someone's like selling a lot here. People are buying into them, it's not really getting anywhere, but you know you've got that all-time high. And this is where it comes within a tick, really. It'll go over at time, comes straight back off. And now I'm sitting here thinking, right, well, it's one tick away from kind of your line in the sand, get above it, and you can really get a move on. And I've already held it for all this crap. And I don't really want to see it coming back down, but we come back straight back into this balance. Realistically, you've got an entry, you've got a stop in, you've seen a higher low, and you're playing for a break through that. So you should be staying in. And all I end up doing is going, you know what, I've had enough of this. I've been in this trade now about 20 minutes. It's not going, and I get myself out. See, look, we push up again, start to stall and come back in. And I'm out. And if you watch, I'm out at 20 area. Now it's up. It's not come back from where I'm out. Straight back up, and then we're going to come and push the highs soon. Yeah, you get these big orders start to come in. You've got all equities near the highs. And now I'm sitting here, do I get back in, do I not? And I'm really screwing with myself now, because that was just an emotional decision. And you know, I've seen these so many times, I've got a lot of them mapped and Evernoted. It's where you've got to sit in it and just be patient and let the market do the work for you. And obviously, as we break this, we get a real push up. Now you're starting to see some low volume being left in places. Now you can start to think, okay, maybe I don't want to see it back below here or around this area. And as we've got NASDAQ Dow pushing up, you get the full move. And really, you've just left already 7 handles on the table, soon to be about 20 handles on the table as it keeps going. So it's going to skip, because you'll see it keeps pushing out, and it does, and it keeps pushing up with all the markets. But you can see if I go, it's just 20 minutes in, another 20 minutes. Now we're sat at 39.50. So you've just got out at the start of the move. Now you're seeing where volume's really been built up here. And yeah, there was no reason to get out. It's a trade setup I like, but it's, you know, how you can execute it better. And a big lesson for me is once you're in is let the market do the work. You've got your entry, you've got your stop. And it's like over managing it, especially with the one on in this case, that you get yourself out and now you've just missed an extra 20 handles. So yeah, that's the execution of this. I think obviously we won't see them at the minute, but as we get back to all-time highs, you start to see this a lot more. And it's something I find that you can build the stats on, have a set criteria of how you play the trade, and you get some risk reward and your expected value. And it's an easier way to size up and have conviction in sizing up on the trade. So yeah, again, you can see I'm out here. That was that push up all the way up and up. And then it does roll over in the end, but you've just sat through, like you've seen in the execution, that pullback, the pullback out of that kind of P shape here, back into here. And you've done all that work and you're still in from down here. And I've got myself out just as the moves got going. So it was frustrating, but it's something to take for next time of, you're getting in this, you're holding it, you've got a good risk reward, because really, now, at first your stop's there, you're targeting a break of 23, that's here, and then a push higher. So you've got a great risk reward if you're in from here, and then you just got to let the trade do the work. So we go for the key takeaways on this one for me. Obviously I had a bit of a bad run, I was struggling, but having some plays that you have conviction in should allow you to size up on them. If you've built some stats, for me, it comes into next one, keep some stats on setups, how you give you more conviction. So if you've ever noted and you've got the stats of 10, 15, 20 of these, you know what your expected value is. You're not getting emotional about the single trade, because over time it should work for you. And it can give you that conviction to size up, put a 2 on, okay, put a 3 on, a 4 on, etc. And take, some good profits out of the market. By having them stats, if you have a loser, over time, this works, this is the expected value, and it'll just give you the conviction to keep sizing the trade up. And then the biggest one for me on this is, once you've done the hard work, let the market work for you. We saw how it opened, a little test, a push up, a test down. You're in, you've let it come all the way back, it's pushed up higher, it's chopped, it's come off, you've held this as well, and then there's no reason to get out just on this bit here before it does the move you want. You've done the hard work, sit in the trade, and let the market do it for you now. Especially if you've got the stats, so how far these can run and how you're going to use maybe some MAs or lower highs to get out. There was no reason for it. But yeah, I just thought it was one example of a trade that a lot of people probably see, and it's how you can build up that conviction on these trades. And when we get back to all-time highs, when it can be harder as well to trade S&P, as the volatility is lower, just a way to say these little test drives or open drives through highs. But yeah, no, that's everything from me today. Normal info at axiafutures.com if you want to get in touch, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.